Alright team, let's take a look at a fight which is going down this weekend and having a fair bit of shade thrown upon it, but I think if you look under the bonnet and realign your expectations, we could have a fascinating fight on our hands. I'm talking this Saturday's middleweight title fight between the champ Erislandy Lara and the challenger Danny Swift Garcia. It's the co-main event underneath Canelo versus Berlanga, and it's for the WBA middleweight title. Lara is the highest in the food chain of the WBA champions at £160 currently, so without that being a super champ at the weight, this makes him the established WBA champ at middleweight right now. At 41 years of age, Lara is also the oldest active world champion in boxing and will defending his WBA middleweight title for the fourth time. Having moved up to middleweight 3 years ago, he's shown no signs of slowing down, recording KO victories over the likes of Gary Spike O'Sullivan, Michael Zarafa and the cornflake Thomas Lamanna. Lara's slick southpaw style, coupled with his vast experience, make him a tough competitor, and he enters this fight on the back of those 3 knockouts. He's targeting a 4th knockout, aiming to add to his legacy as he eyes eventual induction into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. For Danny Swift Garcia, this fight marks his first foray into the middleweight division. A former champion at junior welter and welterweight, Garcia seeks to become a 3-division world champion with victory. However, he faces the challenge of moving up in weight after 2 years of inactivity, with his last bout being a majority decision win over Jose Benavidez Jr. at junior middle. Garcia's power, counter-punching style has served him well in the lower divisions, but he will need to adjust to the increased size and power of middleweight. Lara's ability to outbox opponents and control distance could be critical in this matchup, and Garcia's inactivity in the jump to middleweight may pose significant challenges. His power at 140 and 147 may not translate as effectively at 160, especially against someone as seasoned and crafty as the champion. This bout could end up as a chess match, with both fighters known for their technical skills. Lara will likely rely on his footwork and defence to neutralise Garcia's power, while Garcia will need to find ways to close the distance and land his powerful hooks. This fight promises to be an intriguing clash of styles, with Lara's precision and experience against Garcia's grit and power. With the middleweight title on the line, both fighters will have plenty of motivation. Erislandy Lara has historically been one of the most efficient punchers in boxing, particularly known for his defensive prowess and precise counter-punching. In his fights at £160, Lara's punch output has remained relatively low, but his accuracy is very high. According to CompuBox, Lara lands around 40% of his total punches, with his jab being a key weapon, something Garcia will need to address. His low output isn't necessarily a weakness, but rather a calculated strategy, allowing him to pick off opponents with counter shots, especially when they're trying to close the distance. Danny Garcia, on the other hand, has a more aggressive but riskier approach. In his fights at junior welter and welterweight, Garcia's punch output is moderate, averaging around 60 punches a round. However, he tends to throw fewer jabs and more power shots, with a reliance on hooks and counter punches. His accuracy sits around 35%, which is slightly lower than Lara's, but is still effective when he's able to draw opponents into exchanges and exploit his acute sense of timing. If Garcia can close the gap and turn this fight into a higher volume fight, he may be able to disrupt Lara's rhythm, but Lara's ability to control distance with his jab could force Garcia to miss more than usual, lowering his overall effectiveness. Lara spent several years at middleweight now and has fought bigger opponents, as we've said before, like Zarafa, O'Sullivan and Lamanna, but since moving up to 160, Lara has recorded a 70% KO rate, which is impressive given his reputation as more of a technician than a knockout artist. That is an overall KO rate rather than a middleweight KO rate. His wins at middle does demonstrate that his power has translated well to the higher division, but could also be something of a misnomer, as those opponents were all considerably out of their depth against Lara. Danny Garcia, by contrast, is making his debut at middleweight. Garcia's power at 140 and 147 was well respected, but moving up to 160 comes with new challenges. It remains to be seen how Garcia's power will affect true middleweights like the champ, who has spent years adjusting to the division. Garcia's one fight at 154, and even then I think he came in at around £152. That majority win over Benavidez showed that he can compete at higher weights, but his power does not seem as devastating, and his start was even a bit slower as usual when he was carrying the extra timber. Garcia's power may not have the same effect at middle as it did at lower weights. While Lara seems comfortable and has carried his power up well, this may force Garcia to rely more on his boxing skill, timing and saving his best for the later rounds than pure power. Lara is known for his exceptional ring generalship, his ability to control the pace and distance of a fight, along with his lateral movement. He frequently outmaneuvers his opponents, keeping them off balance and forcing them to chase him, only to counter with precise punches. This makes him a difficult fighter to hit cleanly and consistently. His southpaw stance also creates an additional layer of difficulty for orthodox fighters. Garcia has got good footwork, but he's more of a stationary fighter compared to Lara. Garcia likes to set his feet before throwing his powerful hooks, particularly that vaunted left hook, which has been his money punch for years. If Lara can force Garcia to constantly reset by moving laterally, it will limit Garcia's ability to sit down his punches and could render his hooks less effective. Garcia's challenge will be to cut off the ring, something he struggled with in the past against fighters like Thurman and Porter, and they don't have as much ring generalship, nowhere near in fact as Lara. Lara's movement and ability to dictate where their fight takes place in the ring will be crucial. Garcia's success will depend on his ability to close the distance and cut off the ring, limiting Lara's mobility. Garcia has been inactive since July 2022, as said previously, and this may raise concerns about that ring rust. Historically, Garcia has been able to return from layoffs without significant decline in performance, but moving up to middleweight and facing a skilled veteran like the champ might amplify the effects of his inactivity. Plus, there are nagging feelings of Danny's commitment. The time out, the real estate portfolio, does he really want it as much as we think he does? Lara's recent activity may give him the sharper edge compared to Garcia, and that's even considering Lara's the older man. This could impact Garcia's timing and stamina, especially as we get later on in the fight. Lara can be vulnerable when forced in exchanges. While he excels at controlling distance and countering, when pressed and forced into close-range exchanges, he tends to retreat to the ropes or cover up rather than fire back. If Garcia can force Lara into these situations on a regular basis and make it a more rugged fight, he might exploit this tendency, and he's 41, so he can't go on forever. He hasn't had a long-distance fight at middleweight, and Garcia has never been steamrolled in his career, so we will have some questions answered on the night. Garcia has shown vulnerabilities against slick mobile fighters who can outmaneuver him keeping off balance. Those losses to Spence, Thurman and Porter showed that he can struggle to deal with opponents who can frustrate him with movement and pace. Lara, being one of the most elusive fighters of the past decade, is going to present a lot more difficulties in the same vein. Lara's experience at middleweight is sharp counter-punching, and his ring generalship make him a tough challenge for the challenger. While Garcia's power and resilience are undeniable, that inactivity and the move up to middleweight raise questions about how effective he will be in his debut at the new weight. Lara, with his precise style and current momentum, appears to have the edge, but Garcia's grit and ability to land fight-changing punches could make this a closer contest than expected. This fight could boil down to who can dictate the pace and impose their style for the longest amount of time. While the fight could be close early on, Lara's experience at middleweight, defensive prowess and ring generalship will give him the edge. Garcia will need to land something big early on and often to impose his style, but this suggests Lara's defensive capabilities and adaptability, even at his advanced age, could make that very difficult indeed. If the fight goes into the later rounds, expect Lara to pull ahead on the scorecards or possibly secure a late stoppage as Garcia tires and realises middleweight is just a step too far. That's that then. Thank you for listening. It was a long old trial. Hope you enjoyed it. Who do you think will win? Let me know in the comments. Please subscribe and tap the bell to stay notified of when I upload anything new. Enjoy the fights on Saturday, and we will speak soon.